Hello and welcome to the UTV Vodcast. I'm Carol Jordan. This week, Pope Francis passed away, seen as a figure of great humility and modesty, but also seen by some as not having dealt with issues like abuse within the Church. He leaves a complicated legacy, particularly within the island of Ireland. I'm joined by our reporter and presenter, Sarah Clarke, who has followed the Pope's career through the years. Thanks for joining me, Sarah. So we know the Pope has been battling ill health for some time, but it still felt very sudden towards the end, did it not? He was working right up to Sunday.
Yeah, that's right, Carol. So he appeared to give his Easter blessing, the papal blessing, to wish everyone a happy Easter. He did look very frail and very pearly, but yes, I think the fact that he appeared and blessed the crowds in St. Peter's Square on Easter Sunday, and then the news came at 7:30 yesterday morning that he had in fact passed away. It did come as a shock, although I suppose it wasn't a surprise because he had suffered with ill health since I think it was February he had been first admitted to hospital, and in previous points in his career and in his life, I suppose he had struggled with his health, and had been very open about that as well, which was something he definitely was a figure of, he wanted to show his frailty, his part of this sort of this journey that he was on. So he never wanted to hide that, and he kept people up to date with his health and his ill health, in fact.
So Sarah, what do you think the Pope's enduring legacy is going to be?
Well, you did mention that he, it's quite a complicated picture. He was seen at the beginning of his career as someone who was quite radical, who, there was great hope that there would be a lot of reform within the Catholic Church when he became Pope. That did and didn't happen in a way. So there are many people within the Church who've campaigned for instance, a greater role for women in the Church, and that didn't come to pass as it perhaps might have done, or they had hoped, those campaigners had hoped it might have done. He did, however, speak out in support of LGBT rights within the Church, and said famously, "Who am I to judge?" He spoke very eloquently and very from the heart in 2018 when he came to Ireland and apologised for the abuse that had been endured by many people within Ireland, including many vulnerable children. So yes, he was a kind of man of contradictions, if you like, because he was both a reformer, or hoped that he would be a reformer, but he also was very much a traditionalist as well, because really deep down it's unclear what if anything has really changed within the Church.
And you say, you mention Ireland, but he was a man who I suppose wasn't afraid to get involved in current events, world events. There was a lovely story which we heard last night about how he used to phone the church, the only Catholic church left in Gaza, every evening, which, to be that close to one particular marginalised group of people, at that level is incredible. But when he did have quite a complicated relationship here, though, didn't he, on the island of Ireland? There were a lot of people hoped he would go much further than that apology and actually, hold people within the Church accountable. How kind of fractious was that relationship? You covered that visit when he was here.
Well, yeah, I think the visit was a real high point, actually, journalistically for me in my career, and for others who covered it, a once in a lifetime opportunity to be there at that time. And while it was very different from the images we would have seen of John Paul when he came in 1979, and I suppose critics of the Church would have used that as a kind of illustration of how things had changed and how people weren't as connected to the Church as they had been, and clearly the relationship with the Church and the people here in Ireland has changed considerably from the past for all of those reasons that you mentioned. But I would say that I think largely there was there was a great sense of joy and of celebration over that weekend that he was here. We went to Knock. He was in Phoenix Park. He was in his famous Popemobile throughout the streets of Dublin. So what it did represent to me, I think, that there was still a desire for something that people wanted, and there was that connection with the Catholic Church, which many people will always have. But yes, there was a lot of yeah, there was people were disappointed that he didn't go far enough, I suppose, in really, apologies are one thing, but it's holding those people to account for the abuse that so many people endured.
Now, I think one of the aspects about him, which I think most people, regardless of faith, admired, was just his sort of air of simplicity. He preached about humility, simplicity, modesty, as we've said. He led, as a pope, he led quite a simple lifestyle, didn't he?
He did indeed, and he appeared when he first became pope on the balcony over St. Peter's Square, dressed in white and not in the normal colours that a pope would wear. He asked famously for the prayers of the people who were there, as onlookers. He said, "I am a sinner, I need your prayers." Yes, he lived in the Vatican guest house. He didn't live in the papal apartment. So yes, he did lead a life of simplicity, of humility, of modesty, and that was a great, I suppose, it showed people this is the way that we can live our lives, and that was something that was a change from previous popes, certainly, and his predecessors.
So Sarah, obviously the next step is a conclave will take place and a new pope will be chosen. What are the main issues you think that new pope is going to have to grapple with within the Catholic Church?
Well, yeah, there's a lot there. I mean, you've got a recruitment crisis within the priesthood itself, an ageing population within the leaders within the church. So it's like, where do women, what role will they play within the church going forward? Connecting with your congregations themselves and all the challenges that they're facing throughout the world, in both the developed world and in the developing world, where Catholic, I suppose, populations are still growing. They may be declining somewhat within the developed world, but not in other parts of the world. So there's that, and then there's also the big world leaders that that we are seeing really. Dominating our landscape, the socioeconomic and geopolitical landscape. So the Trumps, the Putins of this world, and other dictators. I mean, obviously Trump is not a dictator, but those very demanding global figures, and where the church, what the church's role is within that going forward. So yeah, needless to say, there'll be a lot on the plate of Pope Francis's successor.
Brilliant. Thank you, Sarah. So that's it from the UTV Vodcast. Don't forget to subscribe and share, and you can always catch us on ITVX. Just search for UTV. Until next time, goodbye.